Hello and welcome back to another fun tutorial. Today we're going to be working on these really cool rainbow candles. Before we get into the video, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more fun videos just like this one. The first item you're going to need for this project is a teacup shaped vessel. I picked these ones up at Goodwill and I got an incredible deal on them. I've seen other people talk about getting vessels there before, so I had to check it out, and I was blown away by the selection that they had, so definitely check that out for your vessels. The easiest way to add a wick is to put that wick through a straw and add a glue dot. The straw helps you center it perfectly every time. To keep our wicks completely centered, we're going to be using these little metal pieces. I also sometimes will add these little clips just to hold everything really tightly in place. Because we're going to be doing such small batches of each color today, I'm going to be melting my wax in the microwave using these little silicone cups. I got these at Michael's. They come in a 2-pack and they are a godsend. They are so cool. Our scent of the day is Love Spell from Candle Science. This is definitely one of my new favorites. Most of the candle dyes that I'll be using today are from Candle Science. I prefer the liquid dyes to the block colors because the liquid dyes just go so much farther. They are an incredible value for how much use you're going to get out of them. Because it's what I had on hand, I ended up using soy wax for this project. If you try this on your own though, I kind of suggest using a different type of wax because I ended up getting a little bit more frost than I would have liked on the final project. When using the liquid dye, a little bit goes a long way. I would say I used about 3 or 4 drops per color. Once my wax cooled down to about 160, I added in my fragrance oil and gave it a really good stir before going to pour my layers. I originally wanted to weigh out my layers to make sure they were even, but that proved to be incredibly difficult and messy, so I ended up just eyeballing it, and I was pretty satisfied with how it turned out. It did end up looking just a little bit more whimsical than I originally anticipated, but with how the final design turned out, I ended up being completely okay with that. One thing I did between each layer was hit the previous one with the heat gun, and that just helped our layers adhere a little bit better. I purposefully made a little bit extra of each color, and I poured those into a silicone muffin pan. I ground each of those little pucks completely down using a cheese grinder. It gave us a really nice confetti-like consistency. Then I used those confetti pieces to fill up one of my favorite little paw print molds. I highly suggest filling these in loosely because the ones that I packed a little bit tight had a few air bubbles in the end. Then I just melted down a little bit more white wax, added some fragrance oil, and poured into these little paw print molds pretty immediately. The warmer the wax is, the better for this technique because you're going to want them to melt down your confetti pieces just a little bit. To make my icing, I used a suggestion I found online to use 50% soy wax and 50% pillar wax. That is just supposed to help it have the perfect consistency, and this is the first time I've ever iced anything made out of wax, but I will agree this was the absolute perfect consistency. The only thing about this that threw me for a loop was how long it took for the wax to completely melt down. I would put it at a couple hours, at least it felt like a couple hours. Every 10 minutes or so, I would just go back and stir it until it felt like it was getting thick enough to finally stick in a frosting-like setting. Once my icing was completely set up, I put it into a piping bag. These piping bags are so cool. They're disposable one-time use piping bags. I found them at Walmart in the baking section, and I wouldn't use these for every icing scenario, but for something like wax that's a little bit harder to clean off, I thought they were absolutely perfect. To ice our cappuccinos, I did 3 little dots, and then I added the paw prints. Once all of those were in place, I added some more little spiky dots at the top just to keep the wick in place. Once everything looked like it had enough icing, I added a little bit of Enviro glitter and our project was complete. Aside from the little bit of frosting issues that I had, these turned out better than I ever could have expected, and I definitely plan to do a lot more drink kind of candles in the near future. You can always see what's available in our shop at jeffyandchihuahua.com or just checking in on here to see what we're up to for the day. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.